Why do you think Joe Biden outperformed the Democratic Party? And what lesson is there from Joe Biden that Democrats can learn? Because he clearly outperformed the Democratic Party.
Oh, most certainly. In my state, you know, I'm the last Democrat standing. The bottom line is this: we've been identified as something we're not. I'm a West Virginia Democrat, a proud West Virginia Democrat, and I don't know of any Democrat that I know of that would ever defund the police. And how that got on as a mantra that that's a Democrat slogan, that's not true. And how all these other things that seem to be extremes are not true. It's not who we are. But we were tagged with that. We were slow probably as a party of responding to it and saying, listen, there's more to us. If you look at basically our bedrock of who we are, how do we protect workers? How do we protect families? How do we give people opportunity? How do we have inclusion? Income and equality, things that basically people are depending on in order to survive in this very, very difficult, troubled times.
Senator, you said actually, you weren't just talking about this year, though. You said, I've watched the last 3 elections, 16, 18, 20. We truly should have been in the majority, and it didn't happen.
What tells you?
Why is that?
What tells you the message we have is not for all America.
I'm sure you noticed something of a pattern forming here. Oh, there's an all-out war on the proposition of defunding the police, which of course you don't do something like that if you feel that this is an idea that has no merit and people are going to abandon it and it's a losing issue. If it's a losing issue, then what happens is you let it die a natural death. You don't harp on it and, oh, we got to do something. We got to let people know about this. No, that's what you do when you feel that something is a threat. And this Joe Manchin clown from West Virginia, oh yeah, he's from the most progressive part of America now, ain't he? I wonder what Appalachian Mountain what coal miner's son he is. This guy says he doesn't know of any Democrat who would defund the police. Well, I can guess there's a reason why he said he doesn't know of any Democrats who run around saying that. Because out in Los Angeles, Jackie Lacey refused to say that she would defund the police, and now she's been voted out of office. See, that's what opposing defund the police gets you. Defund the police gets you into office, and they know it. But if you listen to what it was that this Manchin character said, you notice at the end where he was given this empty, just innocuous fluff non-speak, this nonsense about how the bedrock of who we are and helping families and such. I mean, after he gets through trashing the actual grassroots people who are doing the work.
How do we protect workers? How do we protect families? How do we give people opportunity? How do we have inclusion?
After he gets through trashing the very motion that he's terrified of, he then immediately rolls into the classic Democrat talking point. These clowns are trained to do this mess like a bunch of trained SEALs, because you know who else did the exact same thing?
Stop sloganeering, and let's go about the business of representing people and building hopes and aspirations for people.
How do we protect workers? How do we protect families? How do we give people opportunity? How do we have inclusion?
And let's go about the business of representing people and building hopes and aspirations for people.
It sounds like it came out of the same mouth, doesn't it? You can't tell the difference between the two. The talking points are just so perfectly crafted to complement each other. That's how you know that this stuff is coming from an organized source. These are the DNC talking points being handed down. This is what you gotta say. You hear what old Negro Jim Clyburn said. Let's go about the business of helping people and building hopes and aspirations for people. Hopes and aspirations for people. Gee, that sounds kind of vague. Exactly like what Senator Manchin said. But you notice that Senator Manchin, if you watch the entire Meet the Press segment that he was on, one of the things he talked about was he's the last man standing in West Virginia. West Virginia is a deep red state. I mean, what did he think? The Democrats were going to take that over? Get the hell out of here. But he's not alone in that. Jim Clyburn is also one of only 2 Democrat representatives at the congressional level in the entire state of South Carolina. So what you got a couple of Democrats from the reddest of red states, And here they are saying, don't be talking in that Democrat talk. Y'all gonna be scaring these good white folks over here. You got Clyburn and Manchin both singing the exact same putrid song. But notice how both of them lapse into the old, tired, stale Democrat mantra. Well, we got to be doing this. We got to be helping the people and doing the business of helping people and making things better and speaking to the real issues. Yeah, in other words, nothing specific. Those are not policies. They're not saying what they're actually going to do. People are getting to specifics. We're in the age of specifics now. If there's anything that typifies the argument for tangibles, it's specifics. You cannot just come up to me with any of that. Let's be about the business of helping people. That's too vague, nigga Jim Clyburn. I need to know what you're going to do to help me. Well, stop sloganizing. Barack Obama ran a whole goddamn presidency based on slogans. Hope, change, I hear you. Yes, we can. Obama was nothing but slogans, empty slogans. Same thing with Jim Clyburn. Now all of a sudden they got problems with slogans. Nah, they got a problem with these slogans. Slogans are good as long as they're the ones who are choosing what the slogans are. This stuff that they're saying, this isn't coincidental. This is message discipline coming down from DNC headquarters. The absolute uniformity of the message, the consistency that everyone's using the exact same words, pushing the exact same talking point. Yeah, you know, the freaking memo went out and they said, these are the words that you use. But you see how across the board, there is this absolutely satanic, obsessive, hyper-aggressive war that the media and the white establishment are waging against defunding the police. They're scared of that idea. They're scared of that getting put out there. And the reason why is you got the public actively attacking one of white supremacy's three arms. White supremacy is like a stool with three legs. And it absolutely requires all three. You cannot take even one of them away without it falling over. You got the administrative arm of white supremacy. That is corporate America, the business sector, and government, because government is the shadow cast by business. The businessmen are the ones who literally write the laws, so that's the administrative arm of white supremacy. You have the propaganda arm of white supremacy. That's the white media, like Meet the Press and Axios. And finally, you have the enforcement arm of white supremacy. That's the police and the military. Now, the military are prohibited by the Constitution from calling themselves operating on American soil. You can have the governor call them out on special occasions, maybe for disaster relief or whatever. But the thing is, they cannot be calling themselves doing the job of any sort of domestic police. The military is the military, and they're not supposed to be operating inside the country. So at least one part of the enforcement arm of white supremacy is prohibited from being able to do anything against the people. And that now you have a circumstance where the people are saying, we're going to get rid of the police now. Defund the police. We're going to abolish them. So how is white supremacy supposed to enforce its rule, or rather misrule, without having some sort of dedicated gang of thugs to do it for them? That's what this is about. You got the people saying, we're going to tear off, we're going to rip apart one of the three arms of white supremacy. We're going to knock off one of the legs under that three-leg stool of white supremacy. There's not going to be anything propping it up. That's what they're scared of. They see this coming. So Obama, they got to get this dusty, crusty tool out here who ain't nobody listening to. And apparently that's supposed to do something, but it's New York Magazine. We'll get to them in just a minute. But New York Magazine spelled out something that Jason and I and Tariq and others have been telling you, which is the audience that Obama and Clyburn and Manchin are trying to reach is not the black grassroots. It's not the young people out there who are shaking things up. That's not who these clowns are talking to. Who they're talking to is their would-be Biden Republicans, their would-be white replacement for all these black voters who have broken bad on them. That's who this is really about. That's the true audience that this attack, defund the police is meant to reach. You're trying to take all of those white folks who fled out to the suburbs, all those casual racists who have never liked the idea of black people getting their fair share of anything. You're trying to set them at ease and let them know, hey guys, we're trying to court your vote. Hey guys, we're talking all the kind of stuff that Barry Goldwater would talk in the 60s. That's how Clyburn and Obama and Manchin are talking today. But now that the election is over, you see the Democrats are going after defund the police because that's the signature issue of the grassroots. Breaking the enforcement arm of white supremacy. So you got the white media trying to warp public opinion. They bring on only people who are going to say that they're not in favor of defunding the police. Why, I don't know anyone who's in favor of that. They got Democrats saying that, well, isn't Meet the Press supposed to be about having point and counterpoint? Aren't they going to have a panel saying, well, Senator Manchin may not know anyone who wants to defund the police, but there's a hell of a lot of these activists and there's a hell of a lot of would-be politicians who have been forced to have to say the words. No, they don't do that. Instead, they just let him say that and then they walk away as if, okay, I guess he's got a point. And you make sure you repeat that lie over and over and over. Chuck Todd does not question the assertion, oh, you haven't heard of any Democrats saying defund the police? Why, all you got to do is look at Jackie Lacey out there in L.A. So apparently the Democrats have no idea what's going on in Los Angeles County politics, apparently. But there are also other politicians who have been out there saying, defund the police is not a bad thing. But Chuck Todd doesn't push back against Manchin's assertion. In fact, Todd was the one who teed it up. That's how you know these bastards, they're working hand in hand. Chump Todd doesn't insist that the police must be punished. He doesn't have anybody on who would. That's deliberate. This is the white media putting on some political theater. It's meant to create the false impression that defunding the police is absolutely irrational. Why, that's an extremist position. Even the Democrats are looking and going, we don't know anybody who's in favor of that. See, defund the police, that's extremist talk. That's beyond the pale. Oh, that's beyond irresponsible. That's an extremist position. This is what the white establishment wants. They want to take the completely reasonable and popular stand of let's defund the thugs in blue. And instead, it's a matter of, well, we're going to try to see if we can make that to extremist position. The Democrats we're going to try to create this lie that the Democrats, they're not walking away from their base. Why? What the Democrats are doing is there's nobody who's in favor of it. Same thing that they did with reparations, remember? Now, as I've always told you, whenever it comes to anything that in this society that's seen as advantageous to black people, it is always, at least with the pollsters, always portrayed as just a minority of the population who's in favor of it. Doesn't matter if it's Dr. King's March on Washington or giving MLK a holiday or reparations or what have you. These things are always, according to the polls, well, it's only a minority who are in favor of it. And that being the case, you need to stop pushing for it because it doesn't have any popular support. People are not in favor of it. Well, people weren't in favor of the Second Gulf War. Didn't stop that from happening. People were not in favor of bailing out the banks either. But the white media wasn't bringing on members of Congress to say, oh, we're not in favor of it. It's going to lose elections. We are going to lose it. They weren't doing that. People are supposed to see propaganda like what Chuck Todd and Manchin were doing and what Obama's putting out there. They're supposed to see that and think, well, obviously, defunding the police is unreasonable because you don't see anyone who's for it. These politicians, why the Democrats, he just got through saying, we got plastered with this and we're not even in favor of it. This is classic manufacture of consent 101. As Noam Chomsky said, the most important tool the white media uses to propagandize the public is the bounding of debate. Setting up certain predetermined boundaries for what the discussion is going to be. You can have white supremacist candidate A or white supremacist candidate B. Don't ask about a third-party candidate. Okay, you can either have the police with complete and thorough immunity from law, or you can have the police with 99% immunity from law. So which one do you want? As long as you say that defund the police is a losing proposition, it's a position that loses elections. Well, that's supposed to be the Democrats giving themselves permission to say, well, we can't be in favor of this. Why? We'd never win any elections. But nobody ever actually looks and asks, is that true? Chuck Todd, he's trying to pretend as if he's the voice of reason here. And yet, at no point did he say, wait a minute, we should check and find out if that's actually true. Is it true that defund the police loses elections for Democrats? All you got to do is look at California and see, no, that's not true. In fact, you also look at the Democrats who lost their political seats in the House of Representatives this cycle. What you see is it had nothing to do with defund the police. That's how you know when it's something that the media wants. The media makes it very clear. As long as you say that defund the police is a losing position, then the white media is not going to object to that. They're not going to question you or poke holes in your assertion. You'll say it, they'll let it fly, and they'll go ahead and repeat it a few times. Oh, man, well, why are these niggers out here in the streets pushing for it then? They don't understand how politics really works. We're talking about people being murdered, and they're talking about what's going to be the most popular position with the most aggressively anti-black population segments of the society, the people who dislike black people the most. How can we make sure that they're perfectly pleased? Now, of course, when it comes to gay marriage, the conversation is always, how do we move the country in this position? When it comes to legalizing all of these immigrants who come from cultures hostile toward black people, especially those of us who founded this country, then all of a sudden the conversation is, well, how can we legalize them? How can we come up with some sort of immigration proposal that incorporates them in a path to citizenship? How do we get this done? If the country doesn't want it, how do we come up with a path to get it done? Then you start talking about punishing the police. Oh, that's impossible. We can't even talk about that. Oh, no, we're not going to talk about how do we get there. How do we get there from here? We're not going to talk about that. This is something that shouldn't be done. No one in either political party is saying that they're going to punish the police. They are all coming out in one voice saying that they stand with the thugs in blue. Well, seems there is bipartisanship in Washington after all. Both Democrats and Republicans are able to agree wholeheartedly that they back the thugs in blue. And yet nobody comes out and says, hey, why would the Democrats and Republicans both be in agreement on this? I thought there was gridlock in Washington. I thought they couldn't agree on anything. And yet they all agree the police should not be touched. Now, what's wrong with this picture? This is the white media pushing the new Democrat line, because that's what you hear from Manchin and Clyburn and Obama. This is more of that old new Democrat crap. I told you guys in an earlier video on this channel about the Democratic Leadership Council and their plan that they were wanting to get more sweet donor money from the donor class. We need more political contributions. So what they wanted to do was they wanted to have the Democrats start spouting rhetoric that would appeal to the cash fluid right of center types. And they were going to start calling themselves New Democrats. Clinton got in there and he made it very clear there's going to be a war on black people. I mean, a war on crime. And Joe Biden finally, an administration that's going to sign my god-awful law, 94 crime bill. And next thing you know, here we go. See, that's what the New Democrats are about. They're basically old Republicans as far as their policies are concerned. The Republicans lost the White House, but the Democrats are the ones acting like they lost the election. The way that they talk. Well, yeah, you won the White House, but man, you sure seem to have suffered some losses. Yeah, the white media is already looking down the road. They can see which way the trend is going. That's what's happening. They're already terrified about 2022. They're pushing a line that's meant to appeal to casual racists, read white liberals, but it doesn't seem to be working like they want it to. So what they're reduced to is we're going to attack these grassroots and tell them y'all need to shut up and y'all don't understand how politics work and y'all gonna get people killed. Apparently Clyburn doesn't see all the black folks who are being killed in the streets. They're not being killed because of slogans. They're being killed because we got a bunch of political prostitutes like Manchin, Clyburn, and Obama. It sounds like a crooked law firm, don't it? These bastards sit on their hands while the thugs in blue murder with impunity. That's what gets people killed. This is a wholesale strategy meant to consolidate the white voter base behind a message that they have somehow been forgotten, when in reality, all that really means is the system of goodies, giveaways, and guarantees, starting with white immunity from law, is being threatened. That's what the message here is. That the Democrats they're sending the not so subtle dog whistle of, you white suburban types, we identify with you. We're going to talk all that stuff that you guys talk around your little parties when you guys are getting drunk and smoking meth. We're going to start talking that stuff too. They're using the exact same verbiage that they know that the white right of center types that they're hoping to appeal to use. That's who the audience is for all this. We don't stand with that defund the police. We're against defunding the police. That's who the true audience is. And both parties will prioritize reinforcing white privilege, and both parties are dedicated to pushing back against all the black troublemakers we've seen the last 9 months. That's the message. Jim Clyburn. Jim Clyburn is the worst person you should go to when it comes to getting anything done. All this clown does is he's over there talking like any other Republican you ever saw. This is not a man who actually sides with Democrats. He is a self-interested political operative, basically a political freeloader. Freelancer. That's who Jim Clyburn is. There was a constituency that he thought that he could use for a power base. The Republicans were damn sure weren't going to need him or recruit him for anything. So here he goes. He's going to be the mouthpiece for the downtrodden, but he doesn't do anything for them. And he basically is just half a step away from the old pull yourself up by your bootstraps line. I don't know why he hasn't said that. That's right up his alley. Now, Jim Clyburn, among his other asinine statements, he said that Donald Trump won because the country thought the Democrats had gone too far to the left. The bastard actually had the nerve to say that. He actually had the nerve to say that the country voted for Donald Trump because the Democrats had gone too far to the left. Well, y'all niggas just went too damn far. That's what actually happened here. It wasn't anything the Democrats did. We didn't fail or anything. We just went too far to the left. That's what that is. He actually said that. You notice how you never hear the Republicans say that? The Republicans never say we went too far to the right. Donald Trump, as much as the Republicans can't stand him, and there are a lot of Republicans who didn't want him in office for personal reasons, but you notice how none of them are saying we went too far to the right. Oh, they're going along with, yeah, the election was stolen, and all the rest of that. But you never hear the Republicans, when they lose, say we went too far to the right. Country voted against us, we went too far to the right. We got to rein in our extremist elements. They never say that. Democrats, that's all they ever say. We went too far to the left. It's these leftists you see. You mean your base, the people who you can't win without? Well, you guys are too extreme. You need to tone it down. The Republicans never blame their base. They always look at themselves and say, well, we didn't run hardcore right wing enough. Is that why the Republicans are winning elections? Because the Republicans are actually making it where their base knows what they're going to get. The Republicans don't say one thing and then do the opposite or do nothing at all. The Republicans make it very clear. We lose, it's because we weren't hardcore enough. They never blame their ideology, and they damn sure don't blame their base. Democrats blame both. And you got that Manchin clown talking just like Clyburn. Well, we need, just like Obama too. All of them on the same page. Well, we got to have something for everyone. It's got to be for everybody, you know. Just like with Kamala Harris. You think we're going to do something that only benefits black people? No, we need a rising tide that lifts all boats. Well, if the people who are in front of you comprise fully 65% of the population, sounds like that is the winning message, but that's the problem that they got. The Democrats are as dedicated to upholding white supremacy as the Republicans. And because of the demands of the grassroots, well, they no longer have the ability to be able to prop up white supremacy and be able to come through on any of the promises being made. See, you're not going to be nibbling around the edges anymore. It's like Dr. King said back in the day with his 3 evils speech. We've gone beyond things that white supremacy can do for free. Now we're at the point where trillions of dollars are going to have to be reallocated. Now there's no getting around that whole resources argument. Now you ain't getting around talking about the resources anymore. And we're not taking soaring rhetoric. You're going to have to cut the check. Well, they're like, well, hell, we can't maintain white supremacy and cut the check. The problem isn't winning office. The problem is winning office and denying black people their tangibles. How do we win office and deny black people what they're supposed to have? They don't have a workaround for it. So they're trying to shame us out of it. When it comes to race, this guy talks like any other right-wing white male that you could imagine. When it comes to race, what we need to do as a country is learn how to mitigate those factors. Mitigate those factors? White supremacists killing black folks in the streets, and neither the lawmakers or the courts or anybody else is doing a damn thing about it. How do you mitigate murder? How do you mitigate a bunch of white supremacists who the lawmakers and the courts are giving carte blanche to kill with impunity? How do you mitigate that? You're a black person trying to live your life and white supremacists are ambushing us. How do you mitigate that? Oh, but Clyburn says race will always be present. Let's just embrace it, he says. and do what we can to get beyond it. Well, make up your mind. Which one is it? If you embrace something, that means you're holding on to it. How do you get beyond something that you're holding on to? Let's just embrace it and do what we can to get beyond it. Again, all of this indistinct chatter, no specifics, just a steady stream of verbal vomit. That's what this crap is. Just a bunch of talk that doesn't mean anything. When it comes to it, let's just embrace it and do what we can to get beyond it. Yeah, it sounds like the same kind of empty hot air as, what we need to do is be in the business of helping people and building hopes and aspirations. What the hell does any of this mean? Race will always be present. Let's just embrace it and do what we can to get beyond it. What does do what we can mean? What the hell does that mean? He contradicts himself and says nothing all at the same time. That's got to be a real feat. But when it comes to elections, Clyburn says that Donald Trump got elected because people thought we, the Democratic Party, had gone too far to the left. The bastard actually said that. He says that not just because he spends so much of his time in D.C. at the cheese and croissant parties that his senile corrupt behind has no clue what's going on in the real world, but he also says that because the Democrats have long been putting together a long-term strategy for how they're finally going to stop all the political problems that the black grassroots have been causing. The black grassroots have been undermining and destabilizing the status quo. And what they've been doing is trying to figure out, how are we going to pivot so that we can get some replacement voters so we can neutralize all these black troublemakers. But it ain't going as smoothly as they hoped. Because what's happening is black folks are abandoning the Democratic Party, or rather the alleged left political arm of white supremacy, faster than they can find anti-black zealot voters who are going to replace us. Clyburn knows full well that what he said is a lie. The reason that Donald Trump won didn't have a damn thing to do with the grassroots and had everything to do with people like him. Donald Trump was elected in 2016. Nobody was saying defund the police until 2020. That's 4 years later. Clyburn blames black activism for Trump winning in 2016, but he also blames it for Jamie Harrison losing, even though one has nothing to do with the other. There was no defund the police movement in 2016. Barack Obama signed a blue alert executive order meant to get the support of the Fraternal Order of Thugs. The reason the Democrats lost in 2016 is because Obama and Nancy Pelosi wasted 8 years that they couldn't afford to lose, catering to white voters, the white elite, the white consensus. Taking the side of the thugs with badges. Making sure that Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg were taken care of, but that black folks were left out. Utterly refusing to address the economic issues crushing the black community, giving us the old, well, I think I've done pretty good by black folks. The only black person who even did well during Obama's term was freaking Tyler Perry and Jay-Z. That didn't have a damn thing to do with him. And so the same black people who had turned out in such massive numbers in 2008 and 2012, those are the people who stayed home, and that's what made it where Donald Trump was able to win the presidency. In 2008, Barack Obama got 69.4 million votes. John McCain got almost 60 million. 4 years later, Mitt Romney got 60.9 million votes in 2012. Barack Obama had slipped from 69.4 million to 66 million. So what that means is Obama lost over 3.5 million votes in that 4 years. He lost votes. The Republicans didn't gain votes between 2008 and 2012. What happened was Obama lost support. Where did all those voters go? See, the line back then was, well, complacency, you see. Barack Obama had such a commanding lead that people just figured they could stay home and just phone this one in, and they got it wrong. The Republican numbers stayed flat. Romney didn't get any more votes than McCain got. He couldn't move the needle. In 2016, Trump got almost 63 million votes. So what that means is between 2008 and 2016, the Republicans only managed to increase their presidential votes by a measly 3 million. By the way, Hillary Clinton got less than 66 million votes, which means she got less votes than Obama had gotten just 4 years earlier. So somewhere between 2008 and 2016, the Democrats managed to run off over 3 million voters. It's not that the Republicans had gained votes. Even Donald Trump, 3 million votes, he still was lagging behind where Obama was. The problem, he was lagging behind Hillary Clinton. The problem was the Democrats lost support. When Flint, Michigan was poisoned in a clear act of genocide, what did Barack Obama do? Did he prosecute anybody, go after anyone? Didn't do a damn thing. Did he call upon just unparalleled federal resources so that the water system could be overhauled like it needed to be? Nope, didn't do a damn thing. What did he do instead? Instead, he showed up for a photo op just before the election, before the 2016 election. He couldn't show up before then, but in order to try to stump for Hillary, he decided it would be cute to get on stage and say, "My throat's a little dry. Anybody got any water?" So they could bring out a glass of water, which, by the way, was bottled water. And Obama could go ahead and pretend that he was drinking water from Flint. And the black voters were like, this bastard ain't done a damn thing about a clear act of genocide. He hadn't done a damn thing about the emergency manager law, which was nothing more than a local repeal, a statewide repeal of the 15th Amendment. A clear violation of the Constitution, but apparently Eric Holder, he couldn't figure out that there was a problem. Neither could Loretta Lynch. And when Obama does finally lower himself to come into Michigan, what does he do? He does a stunt that spits in the face of the black victims of the lead poisoning of the water in Flint. It was the complete and thorough contempt for the black electorate shown by Obama and the Democrats, their refusal to produce any tangibles for black people, which resulted in the Democratic Party base getting hollowed out by 2016. It's not that white voters went away. You weren't gaining any white votes. It's that the black folks who had shown up in unprecedented numbers stayed home. Clyburn and the Democrats know this. Trump did not win the 2016 election so much as the Democrats threw away what should have been a slam dunk victory. The Democrats are out here basically repeating the Republican Party line. And nobody's pointing out how wrong that is, how strange that is. That's because the Democrats serve the same master as the Republicans, and for the same purposes. Their job was to be controlled opposition. And they would get us to sit on our hands and see if our white leftist representatives would ever do what we told them to do, which of course they never would. And by refusing to act for ourselves, the threat of black empowerment had been contained. Until now. Now, you've seen those presidential election numbers for yourself. The problem that Clyburn, Obama, and the Democrats have is not that the Republicans have been galvanized. Republican voters haven't been galvanized, and Democrats did not drive voters away. The problem is that the black grassroots have been galvanized by the message of black empowerment, and they've turned their backs on the Democratic Party con game. The black grassroots are making it clear that we're not listening to any soaring rhetoric. We're not going to fall for any more fear talk about, but, well, the Republicans, oh, they so racist, you better help us win, and don't demand that we do anything for you, because that would be unpopular, but it doesn't matter that we don't do anything for you. The mean old Republicans, oh, it'll be so bad for you if they win. It'll be, no matter what you think of us, it'll be worse with the Republicans, so vote for us and don't demand anything. You better not demand nothing. And you might get 1 or 2 crumbs, maybe, but you better be glad for whatever you get, because that's the best you're going to get, and don't demand anything. Because the Republicans, racist and evil. And fear of what evil the Republicans would do, that did manage to keep black folks in check for a while. But these are the black baby boomers we're talking about here. Who couldn't get over on them? And while it's true the Republicans are racist, the reality is so are the Democrats. And black folks are waking up to this reality, mainly because it's become undeniable. Trump won because the grassroots waited to see when Obama and the Democrats would reward their voters' support with tangibles, and it never happened. Instead, Obama did nothing while race soldiers went on a kill spree against us. Well, that's not true. Obama did do two things. He called black teenagers thugs for standing up for themselves, and he signed a blue alert executive order, which was meant as a gesture to ingratiate Hillary Clinton with the police unions because Obama was on his way out. So this is just a measure. This will be a gesture that hopefully the police unions will look and go, okay, Obama, the Democrats are all right. They're gonna support us killing these niggas. They ain't gonna stop us. Obama did absolutely nothing to align himself with the grassroots. In fact, he made it a point to distance himself from the grassroots. And so the grassroots distanced themselves from the Democrats. That is what cost Hillary the election. Democrats stayed home in 2016. And the Democrats know this. The grassroots put their backs to the wall. They had to actually be required to put action behind their words, which was the very thing that the Democrats are determined not to do. The Democrats' plan to ethnically purge black people from the party base and replace us with non-black, preferably white centrist voters isn't going as smoothly as they had hoped. The black voter base of the Democratic Party has fractured. They refuse to do what we say. And so black voters, they could agree that Trump must go. That much black voters could agree on in 2020. But when it came time to look at those down ballot races, well, black folks looked and said, nah, I'm afraid you don't have any scary candidates to frighten us into supporting a Jamie Harrison or a Donna Shalala. You don't have anybody as scary as Trump to make us push the button for them. Now, as I had mentioned earlier, New York Magazine's Intelligencer website, they did a story about the real reason that Barack Obama trashes Defund the Police, and is actually worth looking at. And they sum up, late, what it is the black grassroots have been saying about Obama all along. They say that Obama's position on defunding the police has not changed the term's original goal, which remains the most prominent and has been the subject of several op-eds and analyses since. What they're saying is there's no reason that Obama doesn't know what defund the police is. He's not opposed to it because he doesn't know what it means. Crucially, it's not a goal for which Obama is a reliable advisor, in part because Obama doesn't wish to see it pursued. Now, it's about dang time that somebody went ahead and spelled that out. The reason that Obama is opposed to defund the police happens to be because this is something he doesn't want to see. It's not a matter of he looks and goes, this is a losing issue. You're going to cost us elections. No, you could be running the boards, which, by the way, is by large part what happens with defund the police. Defund the police is not a losing issue. It's a winning issue. But Obama's looking and going, you're going to mess things up for me. You're going to mess things up for me and the white corporations and the white elites and the wealthy white people that I get money from, me and Michelle. I mean, hey, come on. Book deals don't just fall out, don't just grow on trees, Who's going to be paying us these exorbitant speaking fees? That's my reward for services rendered to the corporate elite. All these good white folks I took care of, they're going to be, I'm going to have $500,000 speaking fees for the rest of my days. You expect me to speak against that? No way. Now, as the Intelligencer goes on to write, what he, talking about Obama, and other establishment Democrats have transformed the proposal into instead is an electoral scapegoat. There's been no definitive post-mortem about why so many of the party's down-ballot candidates underperformed in the last election, despite Joe Biden's decisive presidential victory. But one of the more common targets has been the fallout from activist calls to defund the police. This despite the fact that few of this cycle's candidates actually endorsed the position, and that the examples cited are often people who lost by double digits almost certainly for reasons unrelated to the defund movement. Then they quote from old Negro Jim Clyburn, Jamie Harrison started to plateau when Defund the Police showed up with a caption on TV ran across his head. That stuff hurt Jamie, and that's why I spoke out against it a long time ago. Come on, folks. For an article like this, you got to bring the village idiot in to spew a couple of bits of nonsense. But here you got New York Magazine Intelligencer who's laying it out for you. Whatever examples that Jim Clyburn's talking about, these were individuals who were already, if I may use a football analogy, 10 yards inside their own end zone to begin with. These people like Donna Shalala and others, they lost because they broke faith with the party base. That's what happened with these Democrats down ballot. These guys figured that all they had to do was run against Donald Trump, but the voters were smart enough and savvy enough and aware enough to look and go, nah, you're not running against Donald Trump. You're running against some Republican from over here, some county Republican. That's not Donald Trump. The Democrats were pursuing a failed strategy. And what a surprise, it failed. But as the New York Magazine Intelligencer goes on to write, it was also a lie. Talking about they lost the election, the seats that they lost were because of Defund the Police. It was also a lie, one that could be and has been deployed by Republicans eager to demagogue the electorate's association of black civil rights with the Democratic Party. Boom, there it is. Defund the Police is actually just another way of saying black civil rights. This is as much a perennial Democrat dilemma as a right-wing allegation of socialism. And don't think Rahm Emanuel doesn't know that. It's also not a compelling reason for activists to stop asking for what they want, especially at the behest of Obama and company. The ex-president's attitude toward youth protesters is well documented. His dismissal of stronger demands for political accountability and ethical standards as ideological purity, paired with his withering remarks about excessive moral purity in pursuit of criminal justice reform, could have easily predicted his stance on the defund movement. The fact that so much of his post-presidency is defined by silence regarding President Trump's routine abuses, alongside growing vocality about how young activists are doing it wrong, is more evidence of his sympathies. That ain't Professor Black Truth saying that. That ain't the new voices of black media saying that. That's part of the white media saying that. They're pointing out, yeah, we see exactly what the issue here is. Yeah, Obama has a credibility gap. Yeah, what goes unsaid is this is the reason, part of the reason why Hillary Clinton lost. You ain't going to be able to bring in your alleged first half black president and get him to say, you have got to secure my legacy, and think that's going to mean anything. What happened was people looked at Obama and said, this bastard didn't do a damn thing for us. I'm not going to support anyone that he supports for election. I'm going to stay home on election day and we ain't listening to him. So you got the white media pointing out you can't really show that Defund the Police hurt any of the down ballot candidates. These clowns were already underwater before they began. You got these idiots going to blood red states and trying to make some traction there, and it didn't work. They figured that they could poach on the Republicans' territory, but they didn't give the voters any reason to support them. Just like Obama didn't, just like Hillary Clinton didn't. See, they've been spending so long getting votes for free, getting votes for nothing. Now they are just absolutely resistant to the idea. They're in complete denial that it's a brand new day. You cannot come to the voters, especially not the black voters, empty-handed and then think you're going to get something from us on election day. You come to us empty-handed, you'll be leaving empty-handed. But you damn sure won't be leaving with our ballot in your hand. That won't happen. And you can bring in all of these crusty, dusty, bootlick bastards like Negro Jim Clyburn to sell the soap for you. It won't work. You can bring in as many boule bootlicks, pork chop preachers, and civil rights retreads as you want. What they're selling, we ain't buying. There's a new generation here too, in fact. And we don't listen to these old crusty bastards. And you won't be inventing your own homegrown cherry-picked crop of civil rights retreads, clones, a whole new generation of bootlicks and sock puppets. You're not going to be raising up a DeRay McKesson or any of the rest of these clowns. We see right through them. Nor will you be able to have any white media bootlicks like a Roland Martin or a Joy Reid, some Negro who lets his melanin be used in order to authenticate and legitimize these sellouts and suck-ups. You're not going to have any more black media flunkies who are going to legitimize these clowns and say, I'm a black person on TV telling you that they are leader and it's all right. We understand exactly how the game works. The same idiots who prop up some of these LGBT misleaders for Black Lives Matters are the same idiots who propped up Roly-Poly Martin and the rest of these clowns. We understand they all work for the same white supremacist masters. Jim Clyburn, Barack Obama, Roly-Poly Martin, DeRay McKesson, they're all just different operatives for the same white supremacist scumbags. It's defund the... Y'all gotta stop making demands. Stop making demands. Sloganizing kills people. Nah, I think Obama's sloganizing certainly killed people. He was giving us empty slogans while the race soldiers were allowed to kill black folks with impunity. But defund the police, that saves lives. You start disarming the enforcement arm of white supremacy, that saves lives. But New Yorker Magazine's intelligentsia put it best. The Democrats see what's going on and they want a scapegoat, while they try to run hard to the right. The Democrats only lost 6 seats in the House, but the way that they're reacting, you'd have thought that the GOP just ran the tables and stomped their behinds like Newt Gingrich did back in '94. Why are they so scared? Why are they overreacting like this? They are determined to antagonize and alienate the very grassroots who they desperately need, the base of the party. They have to blame the grassroots, though, because the grassroots are united and organized and putting pressure on them to tear down the very system of brutality and white supremacist theft that they depend on. White supremacy is not about justice. It's about unequal domination through the use of violence. The system barely works for those classified as white, and it doesn't work for black people at all. The lawmakers are nothing more than political whores, prostituting themselves to the highest bidder. All you have to do is look at the fiasco with the 737 MAX and how even after the whole world refused to get on those airplanes, the U.S. government was still saying that there was nothing wrong with them, totally safe, don't know what the hell you guys are getting scared of. I remember when the head of the FAA went before Congress, and the one phrase that he used more than any other was, we have to get the 737 MAX back in service. We're working day and night to get the 737 MAX back in service. He only gave one blink and you'll miss it mention to the 360 people who died on those planes. Clearly, he didn't mean a damn word of it. And after he gave that little obligatory mention, after he got that out of the way at the very beginning of his remarks, by the way, he never mentioned them again. He was like, okay, let's go ahead and mention this right quick. Very sorry that you guys died, but we got to get the 737 MAX flying again. Now, was this guy supposed to be a federal regulator or an employee for Boeing? Well, obviously, it's clear what he is. Most regulators, people like Mignon Clyburn, these clowns are chosen by the very industries and the very businessmen, the very corporate heads that they're supposed to be regulating. And when these regulators leave whatever government regulatory agency that they work for, what a surprise. Most of them go and work for the very companies that they had been regulating. That is absolutely perverse. It's bribery. You know that it is. No wonder these corporations get everything they want and the regulators never do a damn thing about them, because you got a bunch of people who either used to work for these corporations and are trying to figure out how to protect their buddies, or in most cases, you got individuals who are trying to burnish their resume and make themselves as valuable as possible to ingratiate themselves with the very white corporations that they want to be hired by. These government regulators, they're all looking for a job from the very companies they're supposed to be regulating. That's the reason why you have FAA administrators who just say, we got to get the 737 MAX flying again. And who cares how many people died? The guys at Boeing don't need toilet paper. They got the FAA kissing their behinds, and that's just one example of many. The laws are written by corrupt elites, and all they do is spell out that they should own and control everything. And it's legal because we wrote it on paper. We all agree as a society that it's going to be the rule of the people, but the problem is this is not a democracy, it's a republic, and in a republic you got to choose representatives, and the representatives don't do what the people say. The people do not agree with all of this white supremacist fiat. Black people in particular definitely don't agree. So if only a tiny handful are actually truly benefiting from this evil, corrupt, racist scam calling itself a society, then why don't the people rise up and put an end to it? Why do the people follow and obey laws that they didn't write? Laws which you know are meant to disadvantage you and to advantage only a handful. You can see the corrupt bastards writing it and everybody sees it out in the open. So-called laws which serve no purpose other than to codify that the white elite own and control everything and that black people should have nothing. Why do we allow courts to deny us our basic human rights and to tell us that we have no right to enjoy whatever formal opportunities exist? Why do we allow that? It's because behind every immoral law that the Jim Clyburns and the Joe Bidens and the Mansions and the Obamas write, behind every unconstitutional and immoral court ruling that the Ruth Bigot Ginsburgs and the Antonin Scalias hand down, there is an organized apparatus that is right there in front of you to enforce what these corrupt bastards, what these lawmakers and courts say. Behind every immoral law, behind every unconstitutional court ruling, is the certainty of violence to back it up. If you disagree, well, there's going to be somebody with guns, a number of people with guns coming to see you. And they're going to be on the side of the corrupt lawmakers and the corrupt courts and the white elites back of them. They're not going to be on your side. They will never be on your side. The banks rip people off with a mortgage scam. Obama don't do a damn thing about it. But the only reason the people vacate their homes is because they know that if they don't, then the banks are going to have some men with guns, the sheriff's department, show up to make them. So the banks rip people off, and then the banks get a bailout, but the people who the banks ripped off get put out on the streets? This is third world dictator stuff here, but it's going on every day in the United States. And the people are going along with it because there is a dedicated apparatus for organized violence backing up every single one of these evil actions. White corporations pollute the air, the land, the water, and the people do not overrun these corporate headquarters. They do not put a stop to these pollution plants, these poison plants, and make them stop polluting their communities, because if you call yourself taking on these corporations physically, then men with guns, the police, will show up. Every system of corruption requires an enforcement mechanism. The more corrupt the system, the more violent and overbearing the enforcement mechanism has to be of a necessity. It must be overwhelmingly violent and overbearing. It has to be. It has to be egregious. When you're brutalizing people to an extreme degree, you need extreme violence to be brought to bear to keep the people having second thoughts about standing up for themselves. But, thanks in part to the efforts of the black grassroots led by the new voices of black media, what's happening is we're helping the people get back more than just their outrage. We're also helping them get back their backbone, too. Obama's showing up and he's surprised, and the white media's surprised. Man, these niggers aren't listening to anybody. They're not listening to Obama. Oh, my God. Yeah. You're not going to be bringing in the dude who decided that it was cute to drink water in front of the black residents of Flint who have been poisoned by the water supply and then think that he's going to have credibility. You're not going to bring in self-interested political prostitutes like Jim Clyburn to tell us, y'all need to just simmer down. Sloganizing kills people. No, the inaction of political whores like Clyburn and Obama, that's what kills people. And the people are very, very clear on that.